what's even more funny too is that how like I mean like I say they basically send JFK to school and he supposedly gets a degree in biology and a PhD in this and a PhD in that, and he's supposed to be like they do this whole thing where JFK the kid is like super smart and all this other stuff, and it's all bull, just lies, where he's supposed to be like this super smart kid, and they pump it up, and like stuff like that, and like give him things to say and stuff like that to make it look like he is like someone, but he's not really. I mean, none of them really are. So I mean, more than just killers and rapists and basically stupid people, on this whole thing, and and it's all just to do this big con job, where they ended up like trying to do this planetary or galaxy takeover or whatever. Anyway, though, so like, so he like he does drugs, of course, a lot of drugs, and he starts talking about how or they do this thing where he has to he says eventually that as an older man that like the space particles the reason why or why you see them, where he doesn't really know, he's just a person and he's just trying to look at the things. I mean, the stars don't really look like space particles, but he says like there's space particles up there, and the sunlight hits them, and then they reflect and come down upon us, and that's why we see. It's just like the moon. We see the moon because it's closer, but the star, those specks out there, they're dust, and the light hits them. And he's like, I have a PhD, and everything I say is true. And that's Richard Nixon, my Richard Nixon, impression, or whatever. Anyway, they have like 30 doctors that they basically, ran through school, basically, and pretty much they actually had sex, drove around, even possibly beat up people or killed people. It's not really sure what they did exactly, but pretty much they drove around and they didn't actually, the tests were like, you get an A, he barely, I don't even know if he knew how to read really, but basically he always aced the tests, and and his friends aced the tests too. Anyone that was a friend of JFK got an A on their test or whatever, maximum grade. Anyway, a lot of teachers just walk out, and realistically, it's this whole big thing where they scrap the Harvard mine basically, because the Harvard and Yale used to be a mine, and or the stone buildings, and they scrapped it and all that other stuff, and all that stuff. I don't even think that Harvard was really a school back then. So anyway, though, it's just this made up story or whatever, and there's like successive clones of JFK too, and it eventually leads to a whole bunch of like, they're just doing whatever they want, and they have like 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 1,000 people basically that are paid or whatever that's protecting them, pretty much, and they do some really really sick twisted stuff. And then they do some other photographs and some stuff, and they start doing what's called films where people die in them and stuff like that. And they're just doing whatever basically. Technically, I'm gone or dead or something during this. Anyway, and they just feel that like, they can do whatever they want, and they maybe do for 1,000,000,000 or 1,000,000 years. I'm not exactly sure how long they actually live for. And basically everyone's like, oh yeah, JFK, it's all amazing, whatever, and it's just as like this sick fantasy that's in reality, basically, of a person, basically he was just a person that had a lot of money, and stuff, and realistically they were paying for everything. And anyway, though, it was just based on drugs and sex and basically lies and everything else and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they try and get the Earth to think that they're the only ones in the galaxy and blah, 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 and this and that. It's like, no, there's 800 galaxies out there and a lot of other life forms, and I'm the creator to matter. And they're really just trying to do an end result, like switch away from where they can control Earth or full Earth. I don't really even know. I don't care. But basically, they do all this stuff, and because they're more public or whatever, and it becomes a real big problem. And in the end, just Nixon, JFK wants to kill all life on the planet, And, that's what he was trying to do over, while we're battling and fighting and all that other stuff, he's basically just purposely trying to kill as many life forms as he can. And then he pays and has people to annoy me or come after me or kill me or something like that. It's like, well, I'm the inventor of matter and all these life forms, so, and while I basically just kick it, I'm still who I am, regardless, so. Well, it was 100 trillion years ago, or 1,000 trillion years ago, basically, was Lucifer star, creator of matter and particles, and creator and all that other stuff, It's like, well, I don't really have anything to prove or care. And Nixon's like, I don't have anything to prove. I got nothing to prove, And he basically is a druggie, basically high on life or whatever, or high on a lot of things, actually. And basically has like this whistle stop tour of the planet and everything else. And basically, they just run amok, and pretty much kill a bunch of life forms in a bunch of other countries, pretty much just, but there's so many humans around here that they could basically kill for days or kill for months or kill for years on this little thing, and they basically just go from town to town, to city, wrecking things and pretty much grabbing girls and lying to them, and then they eventually kill the girls or whatever. They go through a lot of women, because, I don't know. Anyway, he rapes them, he has sex with them, he does all kinds of things with them, and I don't really know. It's just all really bad. And some other stuff. And anyway, eventually it leads to war and carpet bombing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm basically in existence and doing my little country thing and building the earth and doing some other stuff. And he becomes a problem for me. Anyway, and I have to deal with him. So, and realistically, I did have just in case life forms and some other stuff just in case over the years, I always like to be cautious, so I always had things on backup, just in case, and even some things I had forgotten about. And basically, they think they can get around this stuff, and it's like, well, probably not. I mean, I'm 100 trillion years old, and some of my life forms are 9 of the 9 oldest life forms in existence or more. I mean, like, a lot of my life forms were very successful, and there was no end to them. In fact, that was the problem. Because there was no end, they were so successful that they ran out of room. They wanted to reproduce more and grow more, and there wasn't enough matter or materials in the universe. So I had to figure out a way to make more, and we do. And so now each life forms have whole galaxies and stuff like that, and billions of more. Anyway, and a lot of my life forms were highly successful and went out there and even ascended or cruised around and even probably built lots of galaxies on their own, in my, doing what I did. Lots of galaxies knew my existence and knew my record better than I did because they watched me do it more, with other life forms. So anyway, I was just, and these life forms, they go beyond like life and death and we're into immortality and even transcendence or whatever like that. And it's not where you glow white and go into a glowy blob and cruise off. It's like, well, it's technology and invention and all that other stuff. They're trying to keep me back. It's like, probably not. You're probably just gay. It's kind of funny. The elders are trying to keep you back. You're like, no. Probably not. Anyway, just ridiculous or whatever. Anyway, some of the things are just kind of funny. It's like, wow, it's hilarious. Anyway, because like I'm existence and I'm Lucifer, the real Lucifer star. Also I invented the Titanic and some other stuff, and I do it. As I'm cruising along. Doing this, doing that. Basically like leading my people, my crew, my whatever. And they're like, well, we got crews of our own.